Welcome to Cognitive Curves, where we explore the complexities of psychology, culture, and behavior. Have you ever felt trapped by your own thoughts or wondered how some people seem to stay so resilient despite challenges? Today, we're diving into the science of changing your thoughts, going beyond simple positive thinking to explore proven, research-backed techniques that can truly transform your life. This episode is a collaboration of experts to provide you with a deeper understanding, and the voice you're hearing represents a unified perspective from our team. Stay tuned as we uncover the tools you need to reshape your mindset and become the architect of your own reality.
Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're diving deep into something pretty amazing. How to change your thoughts. This is way more than just some self-help stuff. It's about real practical techniques, backed by actual science that can truly boost your well-being.
It really is remarkable how much power our thoughts have, isn't it? They really are the architects of our own realities, shaping our emotions, our decisions, and in the end, our entire experience of life.
Totally. And get this. To help guide us through this super complex mental landscape, we've got some serious insights from psychology giants, Dr. Beck, Dr. David Burns, and Dr. Kristin Neff.
You know, it's fascinating. So many of us just operate on autopilot, letting these automatic thoughts run the show without even knowing it. It's like having a program running in the background of your mind that's influencing your mood and behavior, totally outside of your awareness.
So it's not as easy as just putting on a happy face and thinking positive thoughts.
Not quite. It's more about recognizing and challenging those thoughts that might be holding you back, like distorted thoughts, for example. Imagine someone who keeps messing up at work. They start to think, I'm just incompetent, which can lead to feeling defeated and giving up. This negative thought pattern, it creates a vicious cycle.
Yeah, that downward spiral can be rough. But I'm guessing this is where CBT comes in to save the day.
Exactly. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, offers this really structured approach to changing those negative thought patterns. Dr. Beck, the pioneer of CBT, he developed something called the cognitive behavioral model, which basically highlights how interconnected our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors really are.
So if we can just change our thoughts, we can break that chain reaction and actually transform the entire experience I'm in. But how does CBT actually work?
It's all about identifying and challenging those automatic negative thoughts, often called ANTs. Those pesky little thought gremlins that pop up uninvited.
ANTs, I love that. It's like they're these little creatures causing chaos in our minds. So how do we squash these ANTs? Do we need some kind of mental bug spray?
Well, CBT gives us a step-by-step method. First, you have to identify those ANTs, those automatic reactions you have in certain situations. Dr. David Burns, the author of Feeling Good, the New Mood Therapy, he suggests using what's called a thought record. It's basically a journal where you keep track of your thoughts and what triggers them.
So it's like becoming a detective in your own mind, noticing those repeating thought patterns. What's next?
The next step is to examine the evidence. Ask yourself, is there any proof that this thought is actually true? Often we find that our fears and anxieties are blown way out of proportion.
It's like when we think everyone is judging us, but really they're probably too busy worrying about their own lives.
Exactly. And once you've challenged those distorted thoughts, you can start to create some more balanced alternatives.
So instead of thinking, I'll never succeed, you might say, okay, I may have hit a roadblock, but I can learn from this and keep going.
That's it. It's about replacing those harsh, self-critical thoughts with ones that are more realistic and encouraging. And this isn't just some feel-good theory. A meta-analysis by Quishbers and his team showed that this cognitive restructuring is one of the key reasons CBT is so effective for things like depression and anxiety.
That's fascinating. It's like we're literally rewiring our brains for a more positive outlook. But is CBT the only way to do this mental makeover?
Not at all. Mindfulness is another incredibly powerful tool. It's about developing a non-judgmental awareness of your thoughts and emotions. It's like creating mental space between you and those mental storms.
I love that. It's like we're learning to just observe those thoughts as they float by without getting pulled in by the current.
Exactly. And this practice can be really powerful. Mindfulness-Based Cognitive Therapy, or MBCT, combines traditional cognitive techniques with mindfulness practices. This helps to create lasting change by addressing both the content and the process of your thinking.
So it's not just about changing what you think, but how you actually relate to your thoughts.
That's the key. MBCT teaches you to step back and observe those thoughts without judgment, creating a sense of detachment that makes them less powerful. And the research supports this. Studies by Kabat-Zinn on mindfulness-based stress reduction have found that these mindfulness techniques significantly reduce both anxiety and depression symptoms.
Okay, you've convinced me. Mindfulness is going on my to-do list, but what does it actually look like in practice? Are we talking about chanting Om on a mountaintop?
Mountaintop meditation can be great, but mindfulness can be woven into your daily life, even just for a few minutes at a time.
Okay, I'm all ears. What are some practical mindfulness techniques we can try?
One of the simplest and most effective is mindful breathing. Just focus on your breath, feeling the air moving in and out. This can help to anchor you in the present moment and quiet those racing thoughts. It's like hitting the pause button on your internal dialogue and tuning into your body's natural rhythm.
That sounds doable. Anything else?
Another great technique is the body scan meditation. This is where you bring your attention to different parts of your body, noticing any sensations without judging them. It's a great way to break free from negative thought cycles and reconnect with your physical self.
So we're basically checking in with our body and asking, hey, what's going on here? I like it. It's like giving our physical sensations a voice.
Exactly. And then there's thought labeling. Just acknowledge those negative thoughts as they come up, but don't get caught up in their story. It's like saying, oh, there's that self-doubt thought again, without getting into a whole internal debate about it.
So we're taking away their power by noticing them but not judging them.
Exactly. This mental distance can be really helpful in managing tough thoughts and emotions. A study by Teasdale and his colleagues found that MBCT actually significantly reduced relapse rates in people with recurring depression. It's about realizing that thoughts are just temporary mental events, not absolute truths.
This is all so fascinating. But I'm curious, how does all this mental rewiring actually work? Is our brain really changing?
That's a great question. And the answer is yes. Our brains have this amazing ability to change and adapt based on our experiences. This is called neuroplasticity.
Neuroplasticity. It sounds like something out of a science fiction movie.
It kind of is.
Yeah.
It means that our brains aren't fixed. They're actually changeable. By repeatedly thinking new positive thoughts, you can actually create brand new neural pathways. And these gradually replace those old, unhelpful patterns.
Wow. So it's like we're paving new roads in our brains that lead to better destinations.
That's a great analogy. Dr. Jeffrey Schwartz, who's done amazing work with OCD, he really demonstrates this power of neuroplasticity. His 4-steps approach, relabeling, reframing, refocusing, and revaluing, helps people with OCD manage intrusive thoughts and lessen their impact.
So we're retraining our brains to respond differently to those thoughts. But is there scientific evidence for this? Is there a way to actually see these changes happening in the brain?
Absolutely. A fascinating study by Mayberg and his team used fMRI, which is functional magnetic resonance imaging, to actually show how cognitive interventions like CBT can alter brain activity. In the areas of the brain associated with negative thinking, it's like watching the brain transform in real time.
Wow, that's amazing. So we're literally seeing these changes in the brain, which explains why CBT can be so effective for managing conditions like depression. So we know that neuroplasticity is real, but how can we use it to our advantage?
Repetition is key, just like learning a new skill. Changing your thoughts requires practice. By repeatedly reinforcing those new positive thoughts, you strengthen the connections in your brain over time.
So practice makes perfect. But for our thoughts, are there other techniques we can use to harness this neuroplasticity?
Absolutely. Visualization is another powerful tool. Athletes often use it to improve their performance. By vividly imagining themselves succeeding, we can do the same thing with our thoughts, visualizing ourselves thinking positively and handling challenges effectively.
I love that. It's like giving our brains a mental dress rehearsal for success. What else? Any other brain-boosting tips?
Another great practice is gratitude. When you regularly reflect on the positive things in your life, big or small, this can shift your thinking toward the positive. It's like training your brain to focus on the good stuff, which then creates a positive feedback loop. Research by Emmons and McCullough has shown that practicing gratitude can actually lead to greater well-being and lower levels of depression.
So we're not just thinking positive thoughts. We're actually rewiring our brains to be more positive. Amazing. But I have to ask, is there evidence that these practices actually change the physical structure of the brain?
There is. Research by Lutz and his team found that people who meditate for a long time actually have increased gray matter density in the areas of their brains that are associated with regulating positive emotions. It's like meditation is literally strengthening the parts of their brains that are responsible for happiness and resilience.
Wow, so meditation is actually changing the structure of their brains. This is all so inspiring. It feels like we have so much power to change our thoughts and create a more fulfilling life. But you know, sometimes it's hard to be kind to ourselves, especially when we're struggling. Is there a way to make this whole thought-changing process a little gentler?
That's a great point, and that's where self-compassion comes in. Dr. Kristin Neff, a leading researcher on self-compassion, emphasizes treating ourselves with kindness and understanding, especially when things are tough.
So it's like giving ourselves a break, acknowledging that we're human and we're allowed to make mistakes.
Exactly. Self-compassion isn't about letting ourselves off the hook or ignoring our flaws. It's about recognizing our struggles without judging ourselves. It's about offering ourselves the same care and support that we would give to a friend who's going through a hard time.
That makes so much sense. How do we actually cultivate this self-compassion? Do we need to start writing ourselves love letters every morning?
Well, love letters are always nice. But there's simpler, everyday things we can do. One is mindful self-awareness. It's about noticing those times when your inner critic gets really loud, those times when you're being hard on yourself. The key is to recognize those patterns without judging yourself, just observing them as they happen.
So it's like catching ourselves in the act of being mean to ourselves. Like, hold on, why am I talking to myself like this?
Exactly. And once you catch yourself, you can shift gears and start using self-compassionate language. Instead of beating yourself up with, "I'm so stupid," try something like, "It's okay to make mistakes. Everyone messes up sometimes." It's about talking to yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would offer a loved one.
It's like changing the script from harsh critic to supportive friend. That feels so much better. Are there other practices that can boost self-compassion?
Loving kindness meditation is a really wonderful tool. It's a practice where you direct feelings of love and compassion toward yourself and others. Studies by Fredrickson and her colleagues have shown that this type of meditation can actually increase positive emotions and reduce self-criticism.
So we're basically sending good vibes out to ourselves and the world. Sounds great. But does the research really back up this whole self-compassion thing? Is it more than just a warm, fuzzy feeling?
Definitely. Neff and her team found that self-compassion is linked to greater emotional resilience, higher self-esteem, and lower levels of anxiety and depression. It's not just about feeling good. It's about building a foundation of strength and resilience. That helps you handle life's challenges.
This has been an incredibly insightful deep dive so far. We've covered so much ground, from CBT and mindfulness to neuroplasticity and self-compassion. It's clear that we have a lot of power to change our thoughts and create a more fulfilling life. But before we move on to the next part of our deep dive, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what we've talked about so far.
You know what's really empowering is that this isn't about denying reality or forcing ourselves to be positive all the time. It's about shifting our perspective, learning to challenge those unhelpful thought patterns, and embracing a more balanced and compassionate way of thinking. It's about creating space for ourselves to thrive, even in the middle of life's challenges.
I love that. It's about cultivating a mindset that supports our growth and well-being, a mental landscape where we can truly flourish.
You know, it's interesting how much our society emphasizes external achievements and material possessions, as if those are the keys to happiness.
Right. It's like we're chasing this definition of success that's always just out of reach.
Exactly. And this constant striving,
Yeah.
it can really wear us down. We start comparing ourselves to others, feeling inadequate, never quite measuring up. It's a surefire recipe for unhappiness.
So it's like we're stuck on this treadmill of expectations, always running but going nowhere. No wonder so many people feel burnt out.
That's a great way to put it. It's so important to understand that this kind of external validation is temporary and often pretty superficial. Real happiness and fulfillment, they have to come from within.
So how do we shift our focus from external validation to feeling content on the inside? Does that mean we need to become hermits and get rid of all our stuff?
Not necessarily. It's about finding a balance. It's about realizing that true happiness doesn't depend on things outside of us, but rather on our internal state of mind.
So it's like cultivating a sense of inner peace and contentment that isn't affected by the ups and downs of life.
Exactly. And that's where mindfulness and self-compassion become so valuable. They help us to connect with our inner selves, appreciate the present moment, and cultivate a feeling of gratitude for what we have.
It's like we're rewiring our brains to appreciate the simple things in life instead of always chasing after more. But how do we actually do that? How do we rewire our brains for contentment?
One powerful approach is to look at our goals and ambitions differently. Instead of being driven by a need for external validation, we can approach them from a place of self-acceptance and balance. It's about finding that sweet spot where we're striving for growth and fulfillment, but also being kind to ourselves along the way.
So it's not about giving up on our goals, but about changing why we want to achieve them. It's about enjoying the journey, not just the destination.
Exactly. And that leads us to the concept of enoughness. It's about recognizing that we are enough, just as we are, with all our imperfections and limitations. It's about giving ourselves permission to stop striving for some unattainable ideal and embracing our own unique journey.
Enoughness. I love that word. It's like a permission slip to let go of the pressure to be perfect. How do we actually cultivate this sense of enoughness in our lives?
It starts with questioning the messages we've absorbed from society. Those voices that tell us we need to be more, do more, have more, to be worthy. It's about consciously choosing to define success on our own terms, based on our values and what truly matters to us.
So it's like we're stepping off that treadmill of expectations and creating our own definition of success. That sounds incredibly empowering.
It is. And this shift in perspective can have a ripple effect on every part of our lives. We start making choices that align with our values, setting boundaries that protect our well-being, and prioritizing experiences that bring us joy and fulfillment.
It's like we're reclaiming our power and creating a life that feels authentic and meaningful.
That's what changing your thoughts is really all about. It's about going beyond the surface level and developing a deeper understanding of ourselves, our values, and what truly matters to us.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. It's clear that changing our thoughts isn't just about positive thinking or affirmations. It's about a fundamental shift in perspective, a rewiring of our brains to embrace a way of being that is more compassionate, balanced, and fulfilling.
Absolutely. And this journey of self-discovery never really ends. It's about continuous learning, growth, and evolution.
So it's like we're on this lifelong adventure of exploring our own minds and discovering the amazing potential within us.
Precisely. And that's the beauty of being human. Our capacity for change, adaptation, and growth is limitless.
This has been so inspiring. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of what it means to change my thoughts and create a more fulfilling life. But before we wrap up this section, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the connection between our internal world and the world around us.
You know what really strikes me? Is that changing your thoughts isn't just about personal happiness. It's also about creating a more compassionate and just world.
That's a powerful statement. I'd love to hear more about that connection.
Think about it. When we practice self-compassion, we're more likely to show that compassion to others. When we challenge our own biases and prejudices, we're better equipped to fight against systems of oppression. And when we embrace a mindset of growth and possibility, we inspire others to do the same.
So it's like our internal transformation can ripple outwards, creating positive change in our relationships, communities, and even the world as a whole.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we're all interconnected and that our individual actions and thoughts can contribute to a more just and equitable society.
This has been such a thought-provoking conversation. It's clear that changing our thoughts is not just about personal growth, but also about creating a more compassionate and equitable world. As we've been talking about all these amazing techniques for changing our thoughts, I can't help but think about the role of our environment. Like, can our surroundings either help or hurt our progress?
That's a really important point. Our environment has a massive impact on our thoughts and behaviors. It's like we're constantly surrounded by messages that influence how we see things and what we believe.
Yeah, and sometimes those messages aren't so positive.
Right. Think about it. We're exposed to so much negativity and pressure these days, like the constant stream of bad news, the impossible beauty standards we see in the media, or even that toxic positivity. That makes us feel like we can't even have negative emotions.
It's no wonder we struggle with negative thinking sometimes. So how do we create an environment that actually supports our mental well-being?
Well, it starts with being mindful of the things we're letting into our minds and the places we're spending our time.
So it's like a mental detox, cleaning up our information diet.
Yeah.
And choosing to be around things that have a positive impact.
Exactly. We can start by limiting our exposure to negative news. Maybe unfollow social media accounts that make us feel bad, and make an effort to seek out content that inspires us and lifts our mood.
So it's about creating our own mental landscape and choosing to focus on the positive.
That's a great way to think about it. And this also applies to our physical surroundings too. Our environment can really affect our mood and energy.
So it's not just about what we consume mentally, but also the physical spaces we're in.
Exactly. Creating a calming and inspiring space can make a big difference. Maybe declutter your home, add some plants or natural elements, create a little corner where you can relax and recharge.
It's like building a sanctuary for our minds.
I like that. And that feeling of peace and tranquility can really affect our thoughts and behaviors in a positive way.
So it's like our surroundings are constantly sending us messages.
Yeah. Either reinforcing our negative thoughts or nurturing our positive ones.
That's a great way to put it. By becoming aware of those messages, we can make conscious choices to create an environment that supports our well-being and growth.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. It's clear that changing our thoughts isn't just an internal process. It's also about creating an external environment that supports us on that journey.
Absolutely. It's about taking a holistic approach, paying attention to our thoughts, our emotions, our behaviors, and the environments we're in.
It's like creating a symphony of well-being, where everything works together in harmony.
I love that analogy.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive. I feel like we've all gained a new understanding of the power of our thoughts and the many ways we can create a more positive and fulfilling life. A huge thank you to you for sharing your expertise and insights with us.
My pleasure. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this exploration. Remember, you have the power to change your thoughts. And in doing so, you have the power to change your life and the world around you. We'll see you next week for another deep dive into a new topic. Until then, keep those positive thoughts flowing and create a world that reflects the best version of yourself.
And that wraps up today's deep dive into the science of changing your thoughts. Remember, the power to reshape your mindset and transform your life is within you. By using these techniques, from CBT and mindfulness to self-compassion, you can break free from negative patterns and build a more balanced and fulfilling life. If you found this episode insightful, make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay updated with more deep dives into the human mind. And of course, we'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below with your thoughts or any techniques you've tried to change your mindset. Let's keep exploring those cognitive curves together. Stay curious, stay thoughtful, and we'll see you next week.